Hey, it's Conrad Thompson. Thanks for checking out the podcast here on YouTube. Be sure to hit the subscribe button and the notifications bell. You'll get a notice anytime we upload some new content. And when I'm not asking Bruce, hey, how big was Batista's? Well, you know. One of the things I like to do is help people save money. And if you're watching this video right now and you're in a 30-year loan, man, you're overpaying your single biggest bill and you may not even realize it. I want you to do a little experiment for me. Take your calculator out, multiply your monthly house payment by 360 payments. That's how many payments there are in a 30-year loan. That big scary number, that's your total of payments. You're looking at that number? You know you can do better. Keep more of your own money right now and go to savewithconrad.com. Or maybe you've got credit card debt. Man, it's not a matter of if I can save you money with that. Your average interest rate on a credit card is more than 20%. And by the way, all the interest you pay on those credit cards, it's not tax deductible. Whereas the mortgage interest, well, that is tax deductible. So if you owe this debt, it's up to you how to pay it back. Doesn't it make sense to get the cheapest rate possible and the greatest tax deduction possible? Find out how much money you can save right now for free at savewithconrad.com. You don't need perfect credit. Even scores in the 500s can be approved, and it's no cost out of pocket. But maybe best of all, we're licensed in more than 40 states. We can help more families than ever before. But how much can we save you? Find out right now for free with a quick quote from savewithconrad.com. Hey, it's Conrad Thompson, and you're listening to My World. And of course, we couldn't do it without the Hall of Famer himself, Double J, Jeff Jarrett. Jeff, how are you, man?
Oh, Double S, silly shenanigans. How you doing, my friend? Looking forward to it. We're hitting our groove 2022, off and running. Man, there's a lot going on in our world, isn't there?
Yeah, it's hard to keep up with sometimes, but it's easy to keep up with the major news. And I guess congrats are in order. Some friends of ours are now in the wrestling business. Our friends across the pond over at Progress Wrestling are now under new ownership. Tell us what you know here, Jeff.
No, I've worked with Lee, went out to his, he's a director of Tranmere Rovers, which is that side of the pond. They call it a football. We know it is soccer. But they've got Paul Benson, who used to work, and we're going to get into Paul Benson and the discussion as a part of this episode. But yeah, they've got a new staff, a new buddy of mine, Martin Best. I like to refer to him now. We're on Bestie. We're nickname callers. He calls me Double J. I call him Bestie. But anyway, Progress, new ownership. They are on, they are under that WWE umbrella, like ICW and WXW out of Germany. So, but no, I'm excited for them. They've got a lot of cool things coming up on the horizon. So tell you that and pick a fight. That campaign, Conrad, is man, last week it got a lot of buzz. I got more calls on that in a real inquisitive way. Hey, Jeff, what's going on? You've worked with him for years. What is this? And I said, hey, man, it is fight. The little engine that could has grown and grown and grown, and they're part of the Triller family. And, so some folks don't even know that internationally they do AEW. They do, they did the Jake Paul events internationally. They've got a lot of stuff, not just here in the U.S., but internationally. And in weeks and months to come, as we discuss it on the show, we will have our pick a fight, which is basically we're going to say, hey, watch this weekend. Check out all of our social media links, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and you can click on there, start creating your own fight books, which is like frequent flyer points to build up. And you can watch some events eventually free of charge. It's really cool. So I'm excited about the fight relationship. Cap City Baseball, the schedule is out now, Conrad. So we're going to get you up there for maybe not first pitch, maybe not for opening night. We'll bring you in the heavy hitter. We'll let it get real hot in Springfield. But no, anyway, Cap City Baseball is up and running for those that are dialed into that fight. Congrats to the Progress folks. And what else we got going on other than a fascinating topic today?
Well, before we get to today's topic, I want to mention you teased it last week, and I think Effie posted his response over on social. I guess you're going to have some words this weekend on fight at the GCW event. I think we're finally going to hear from you about, as a friend of mine, not a friend of yours, would say, what's causing all this? Hashtag pick a fight. Tune in this weekend.
But I'm sitting there really trying to gather my thoughts that let's move on. And Saturday night in Chicago, I'll just say Effie is a unique character. There's a lot of unique characters in Game Changer, including Cardona, who's whether he's in or out or quit or whatever it may be, and a couple other folks, and Moxley's their champion. So a lot of buzz, Conrad. I'll just say that. Fascinating buzz about my stroll on the boardwalk in Atlantic City. Let's just leave it there.
A lot of buzz about St. Louis too. At the end of the month, of course, it's going to be Royal Rumble time. You, myself, and Eric Bischoff are all going to be there. You get to ask any question you want to these guys. We are not recording this. It will not air anywhere. So let's let it rip, Tater Chip. You want to know what they thought of working with Dixie? You want to know what they thought really the last time they worked for WWE most recently? Maybe you want to go ahead and find out what really happened behind the scenes in WCW in the late 90s. Or even what's to come when these guys start their own promotion. Doors for VIP open at 2 p.m. General admission gets in at 2:45. The show will start at 3. We'll be done by 5. I keep mentioning when we're done because I want to make sure you understand that the pre-show for the Rumble starts at 6:30 and it's only 2.4 miles away. So we're in their neck of the woods for the Royal Rumble. You got time to do both. So if you're in town for the Rumble, why not come see a couple of Hall of Famers? When you get VIP, not only do you get to claim the best seats in the house, you get a very special piece of swag you can't buy anywhere else. Plus, you get pictures with both guys, an autographed 8x10, and both of the guys will sign any item of your choosing. Now, that happens at 2 o'clock. You want to pick up the VIP tickets over at ericandjefflive.com. I'm sorry, jeffandericklive.com. That's jeffandericklive.com. 2 Hall of Famers for the price of 1, plus stories you can't hear anywhere else. I'm really pumped about this. By the way, they will have concessions, including alcohol. So let's have a good time. It's jeffandericklive.com. But today we're talking about one of my favorite topics ever, the MMA enthusiast, Jeff Jarrett. Of course, the story of your MMA enthusiast, dalliance has to be addressed with Genesis 2011. Let's get right into it. We're fresh off a final resolution in December. There was a lot of talk about Jeff Hardy's condition coming out of that show. Dave Meltzer would write, there was a lot of concern when Jeff Hardy arrived from people worried about his condition. At one point, it was talked about pulling him from the show, announcing that he was injured and putting the title up in a 3-way with Morgan versus Anderson versus Jarrett. Anderson was actually cleared to wrestle and had his first match back the night before on an indie show in Wisconsin facing Matt Hardy. Joe would have been pulled as most likely Jarrett would have gotten the title. Hardy then said he wasn't loaded, but was suffering from exhaustion from the trip to Abu Dhabi, which included a 20-hour flight back. Management accepted that story, given that the other wrestlers on the tour were all exhausted, although none were in any danger of being pulled from the show. Hardy also did a personal appearance in Detroit the night before. One person actually said that Hardy was in better shape now than when his baby was born, whatever that means. So chat me up here. What do you remember about Jeff, and was he or wasn't he, or is this just the throes of addiction? Is this, those dreaded wrestling demons rearing their ugly head, or is it real? It's just a long trip and my man was just tired.
Conrad, going through the notes and me sort of jarring my memory, I think for me, the context, as our friend says, I can't wait to get to St. Louis. It's going to be a lot of mudslinging, if you will. It'll be fun. But no, context is king. In 2010, when we'll just say and this leads into the story as well, but when I was removed from executive producer and head of creative and came back, my role within the company radically changed. And so, being, whether it was head of creative and which obviously goes into talent relations and of talent, executive producer, you have to have your thumb on the pulse of all this, especially what you're referring to right now. When I returned, I went into, me and Bob Carter sat down and other folks at Panda, And all right, Jeff, where is your skill set going to be best? And we collaborated on a couple of different things, but we landed on basically running live events. And I say not running and not all booking the buildings, but I was sort of I touched everybody from booking the buildings to the merch, Don West and all that. But so live events and international were my two buckets that I was, I got up and left Hendersonville and drove into downtown Nashville, the office. That's what I walked in and did every day there with Andy Barton and the team. So with that being said, me being on the pulse of whether Jeff was exhausted or tired or the demons or any of that, I was a quote unquote another talent during this time. And so I was in Abu Dhabi, and a little footnote about that. That ring was an old boxing ring, and it's like a brick. I mean, it was as hard as possibly could be. I'm not saying that adds or that is a part of the story, but I do remember the Abu Dhabi shows, beautiful hotel, beautiful scenario, treated royally. It was an awesome trip, but that ring was really hard. Now, was Jeff have his bell rung from that? I don't know. I don't even think so, but I'm not aware of either or. And when I read these notes about he was even in question, I don't really specifically recall that. Not saying that it didn't happen. I just don't recall it.
Get even more from the hottest new podcast going, My World with Jeff Jarrett, over at adfreeshows.com. Let me get granular here for a minute, folks. Not only can you get the entire My World episode library with 0 ads, new episodes come your way each week early, ad-free, and on video starting at just $9 a month. We've also got tons of exclusive My World bonus content waiting for you, plus unique interactive experiences with your old pal, Double J. You get to jump on and ask Jeff questions, and if you joined us in Chicago this year for Top Guy Weekend, you got to hang out the entire weekend. 100% the best value in all of wrestling. Strut on over to adfreeshows.com right now to sign up. We're smack dab in the middle of the Hogan Bischoff era of TNA. Mm-hmm. I want to mention you defeated Samoa Joe at Final Resolution, and in the Observer, it's noted that Joe's contract had expired, but there was an extension signed to get through the pay-per-view. And there's other talent leaving the company too. Hamada, who was one half of the Knockouts tag team champions, she leaves the company without even losing the titles. Her tag team partner, Taylor Wilde, she has her contract expire as well. This is a major shift as far as the talent is concerned. Is this all just the new era, the new regime, or was it business as usual for these sort of contract situations to happen? Because TNA at the time is still a relatively small business.
Well, and when you look at it through the lens of hindsight, it's very crystal clear. But I remember the Joe situation, and man, you talk about being put in some unique spots. The guys that would come to me, that I'm the one who signed them to their deal, whether it was a year before or 2 years or 3 years before, and now they're up. And I don't have anything to do with renewals, raises, bumps in pay, dates, none of that. The Joe thing was a hot button, but there was a massive transition. And depending upon who you spoke with, Dean Broadhead, CFO, our expenses were already in 2010, they just got completely out of hand. So, you can't bring in 10 guys on a small business and not let 10 go. And so therein lies the problem. Eric and Jason had a vote, Hulk had a vote. Obviously Dixie had the ultimate vote. Russo writing, wanted this talent, that talent, but you can just see what you just said. Hamada left without even dropping the titles. Taylor Wilde, Samoa Joe. I think there's a Rhino situation. There's so much turnover going on here. And then all that, like I said, all that other new talent and, Matt Hardy and Flair. And I mean, here we go. It is a definite transitional period from a contractual stage with a lot of talent. I'm not saying just in this month, but over this 6, 12, 18-month era.
The hits keep on coming. It's also in the Observer that Rhino's in the same sort of spot. His deal came up and the sides couldn't agree to terms as he was looking for a level of guaranteed money. Rhino was one of the guys who was a big signing for you back in 2005. And here we are 6 years later, unable to sign a deal. Meltzer also had this to say. Hernandez's contract rolled over. They want him back after spending so much time in Mexico. The idea was for him to learn Spanish by living there and then come back and be pushed as a Latin superstar. But he's got the same issue with Cain Velasquez in the sense his Spanish isn't that good, so the Mexicans won't see him as Mexican. We're told that while he understands Spanish now, his Spanish was never good enough to where AAA allowed him to do any interviews in Spanish. And that was the deal, was to come back and do Spanish interviews that would get over. Do you remember being disappointed that Hernandez, didn't do better with this opportunity?
I mean, I love Sean, and he was there in the asylum days, but I can remember having conversations with folks, and with all due respect, English is Sean's first language, and he would not consider himself, and I certainly don't others consider, others. He's not a promo guy.
Right.
So who in their right mind would actually believe, well, other than Dixie, that he can go to Mexico, learn a second language, and on top of that, get a skill set to cut promos? That whole situation.
Okay. So timeout, but I don't mean to cut you off, but you said who else? I mean, besides Dixie. So Meltzer has this right, but you're saying it's not that Meltzer got it wrong. It's that Dixie had a bad idea.
It's not either delusional. And look, I've raised my hand. I'm the delusional optimist. It's hard to imagine that someone could think that a non-promo talent can go learn a second language and come back and cut a promo in that skill, in that language. It's just, but yes, that was the mindset. And look, that was when AAA and CMLL and who are we going to work with, which I had nothing to do with. I got marching orders at one time, go create a relationship with CMLL and Paco. Okay, I went and did that. Well, they didn't like that. Okay, now we're going to go back working with AAA. It was just, Conrad, probably a couple of times today, because we're going to get into talking about my undefeated MMA career and a couple other things, but there's a couple of frustration points during this time that now here we are 10 years later, plus 10 years, it's still a head scratcher. Like, really? This really went down? It's frustrating.
Well, this really went down. They fired Rhino on TV. Rhino's going to come out and demanding a contract for turning on EV2. Bischoff, who's a heel character, yells back, pulls out a piece of paper and writes down NO exclamation point on it. So he says Rhino lost to Rob Van Dam and he doesn't have time for losers. So Rhino says, what about my ability to feed my family? And Bischoff says, I don't care. So Rhino jumps over the table. All the heels stomp him, start beating on him and throw him out. And he's written off TV that way. Nobody can ever look back and say Rhino didn't take care of business. This is not the best creative, but hey, he did it.
And I did recall this. You have to admit, Conrad, let me throw it back in you. Vince McMahon, I think, is he's such an unbelievable heel when he turns it up. I think Eric Bischoff is too. When Eric wants to be just a arrogant, condescending SOB, his character on TV is fantastic. And I don't know the ins and the outs of this angle and like the story behind the story. But man, Eric in this role, he chopped old Rhino's legs and and Rhino obviously went along with it, but yeah, good stuff.
Let's also mention that Bubba's going to put a pin in it, if you will. He cuts a promo where he's saying anyone could have been Devon because I was the star of the team. And
oh man,
this is kind of fun. He even pretends to be Devon, or he has another African-American fellow who's from his wrestling academy come out and pretend to be Devon, saying, oh, my brother, testify, which is kind of fun. If you're going to break up a tag team saying, hey, I was the star, anybody could have did your part, and then you have a guy come out and do his part, that's pretty fun stuff. That's old school wrestling right there, is it not?
Simplistic. That's something that I always, from when Dudley / Team 3D, when they came on board, and they came on board early. And props to both of them. They're obviously a black guy and a white guy, but they have very different personalities, but to me, super compliment. They made it work and then some. And I love the direction they took this. And then, Bully Ray is the single, and we'll get into aces and eights on a whole nother conversation. I think it went too long, but I think Bully, this was a good launching pad for Bully Ray.
So Bully Ray and the fake Devon lose to Shannon Moore and Jesse Neal. And then of course, Bubba doesn't like that at all. So he beats up the fake Devon until the real Devon comes out to make the save. Now, we've also got Tara and Generation Me. Yes, the Young Bucks coming out for a concert. Tara is singing badly. The Young Bucks are dancing badly. And this is going to lead to a main event of Mickie James and Tara in a steel cage match. So we got women in cages and the Young Bucks not wrestling, but dancing. Oh man.
Hey, Vince Russo, how we doing? No.
Was that what this is?
Well, I mean, to this day, this is sort of where in the office to certain individuals, it was the 5-headed monster, Hulk, Dixie, Russo, Eric, and Jason, who was really in control. Because it was a mess at times. I mean, a real mess. And so I don't know who exactly, but Tara and Mickie, I mean, as we was going again, I'm sounding like I'm jumping all over the place. What a load of talent that 2000 into 10, into 11, into 12 that TNA had. But you just say Jen Me is dancing. Okay.
Yeah.
Right on. Okay.
Next up, Jeff Jarrett comes out and offers $100,000 to any man, woman, or child who can make him tap. Jarrett compared himself to George St. Pierre and Josh Koscheck. Borash was in the ring to find a volunteer, and here was the deal. To this segment, they had several indie wrestlers as plants come out. Several fans rushed the rail and tried to climb over to accept the challenge who were not plants. And here's the funny part. This is all from the Observer. Security and pretty much everyone, including Jarrett, didn't actually get the plants. They got some muscular guys as plants, and then all kinds of people, including some who were muscular, apparently, but not plants, trying to hit the ring. So nobody in security knew who the plants were, nor did the people in the truck. The agents were told to get the muscular dudes who were local wrestlers. So it was a panic situation as some muscular guys came forward and they had a look in their eyes for that $100,000. They thought they could whip Jarrett. The plus part is they got a lot of footage that came across as real. Bischoff loved how the segment came across and actually came out to the area where the fans were and tried to interview with fans who wanted to get at Jarrett for reaction. Apparently, those fans got some good promos. Everyone was remarking about how legit the whole thing looked because of an aspect of it was. This was heavily edited, so most of the crazy stuff didn't air. On TV, it looked more under control, which made it less memorable than showing all the fans charging at Jarrett trying to hop the rail. Buddy, this is great stuff. You've been hated from day one, and now here's a chance to whip your ass and get a 6-figure payday. A lot of folks saying, sign me up. Jeff, you're muted. The show sounds better when we can hear you, bud.
Oh, shut up. I was trying to put mute on it so I could drink my coffee. Folks, let you in a little inside baseball. We are recording this much later in the day than we usually do. And from about 5 a.m. to about 11 a.m., I'm really dialed in, a couple of cups of coffee in. We're much later in the evening. So if I'm dragging a little bit, apologies. But anyway, Conrad, so I remember this vividly. And I'm just going to say this with all diplomacy possible. Old Dave, in that paragraph you just recited, is a perfect example of the professional wrestling industry. I'm going to take a foundation of facts, but then I'm going to sprinkle in there some fiction and oh, what happens if this? And I'm going to dress it up and all this. And by the end of it, hell, it's a damn entertaining paragraph you just read. But the fact of the matter is, Dave's way off, but it made for good reading.
Oh, so what really happened?
No, I mean, We knew the truck knew what was going on. We knew the plants. Me and Borash had gone through this. There were some folks from Bubba's school, old Dexter Loomis, and that whole crew, which we're going to get into this, and the Double J MMA, Sam Shaw, he was called in TNA. But all of this was completely organized, and we had more plants out there, knowing that if we create a sense of urgency, some of those park guests and local fans, they're going to like, wait a minute, maybe there's 2 plants, which would be kind of a simple TV deal. But if we have 7 or 8 and they're all over the arena, we're going to create this aura or sense of, oh my God, we're going to go kick Jeff's ass. And it worked, Conrad. It worked so well that me and JB, like we have often done in the past, we just chuckled and were like, did you see the people? Like, let's dial it back and think about this logically. Okay, we're going to come in Universal Studios. We're going to watch TNA Entertainment Wrestling. And we're going to sign a piece of paper. Oh, and if we beat Jeff up, we're going to get paid $100,000. I mean, just the simple logic of that doesn't really add up. But man, Conrad, back on tape. He was good, and we were doing reaction, and I don't want to get too far down the story, but that show, it was fun. It was energetic. When the whole storyline, and maybe if you want to set the table, Conrad, you may want to, what is Double J MMA Enthusiast? I didn't come out in boots and tights. I came out in MMA trunks, and I, had my gloves, my padded gloves on, and I would get my ankles taped up. And I watched a couple of my buddy Tito. I watched sort of Tito Ortiz's entrances. I watched some different, so I tried to have the mannerisms and all that. And it clicked, and the people, it got heat. I guess that's the most simple thing.
Oh, dude, it was so heat. And I want to play the complete Jeff Jarrett Dojo video. But before I do, did you just call our man Titor?
Yeah, that was a fumble. I told you it's late in the day. I'm going to put myself on mute and get me some coffee.
I love it, because last week people had a blast with you saying Colorado. And if you're hitting us with Teeter too.
Is it Colorado or Colorado? It ain't. Did I say Colorado?
You said Rada, and it got over big on.
No, I did.
People loved it. But I love Teeter Ortiz. Like, that's my new deal. I mean, either way, listen, we're having a lot of fun.
No, real quick, before we get into this, did you watch the GCW event 10 days ago?
Hey, you ain't got my address. I don't want to hear that.
No. Here's the deal. I was on middle of the card.
Like always.
Oh, another softball. I'm just trying to have a little fun, pal. Go ahead. I'm Double J, double MMA today. And did you know I retired undefeated?
I don't have any doubt.
I've never been beaten in an MMA fight ever. And that includes an Olympic gold medalist as one of my opponents.
I want to mention this aired in late November 2010.
Okay. And so this is the buildup. Yeah. Just give them a little.
I'm going to give the context. I was kind of saving it for later, because this is one of the funniest things I think you did in your entire career. And you hit old ladies with guitars. I mean, and you hit Beetlejuice with guitars, but still, there was once a little person masturbating in a trash can who a week later pulled a gun on you. And still, I think this is funnier.
You want me to give the setup of this?
I do, but before you do, I want to tell everybody how to find it. Go to YouTube and type in the complete Jeff Jarrett Dojo video. It's on Impact Wrestling's channel, and we might actually tweet out a link to the video from our social at My World Pod. Chat me up though. What's the setup here?
So this whole storyline was going to evolve, and Vince and the creative team came to me and said, what do you think about this? And I don't think they really know. Look, I'm up for anything, and I'll try to take whatever creative and make it my own and make it entertaining and heat out of it and all that. I loved it from the very beginning, knowing that I was going against Kurt, because, when you look at Kurt, especially, in that, during this time, that 10-year run and his look, to me, he was obviously all the credentials, but it's like, man, I wonder how Kurt would do against Titor. No, I wonder how Kurt would do against fill in the blank of an MMA fighter. So I think the sports entertainment audience just had the vibe of, Kurt's an MMA guy or could be an MMA guy or whatever it is, because all of his legit background. And so me with the natural rival and everything that went with it, and we'd already had our matches at Bound for Glory before this and in 09 and all this. So we had already worked together, but for me to come out and launch this, it just fit and knew where we were going. But we got a call, and Jeremy's the one who called me and said, hey man, we need to shoot something. Do you know anybody that like has a karate studio? And I'm going, yeah, David Deaton Studios. They're all over Nashville. I think he has 3 or 4, been in the market forever. And my kids have taken classes off and on there as little tykes, like really a conditioning class. But there's a group of us that used to go out on the lake, and their kids were currently students at the karate club. and I said, what are you thinking, JB? And we just sort of collaborated. He's like, look, you got to teach kids. It was right before Thanksgiving. I landed from Orlando. Jeremy had taken, I believe, if I remember correctly, he'd taken the morning flight. I'd taken an after ones. I literally, we went straight to the studio. We shot all of this, literally everything. And when 2 guys and you don't have lights and sound and a bunch of headache, just go in there and run and gun and shoot. Conrad, we shot this all in about 15 minutes, but it goes to the point is it's entertaining, but man, just don't overthink it. Just get in there, no script, no nothing. I mean, there was, other than we need to create a package and get heat with it. That was sort of me and JB's direction from creative. So that's the setup. It was.
And now here we go. Take a listen.
Well, kids, thanks for inviting me here today. Obviously, the word has traveled real fast of my newfound love of MMA, and I hope you guys, you'll never reach my level, but you're starting young, and you could aspire to come close to my level. We're not going to be doing any karate today. We're going to be talking more submissions, more along the lines of what I perfected, what Samoa Joe, Kurt Angle have attempted for their entire life. To gain the knowledge that I've quite frankly mastered in a matter of weeks. First things first, I need to find out where you're at, where your skill level at. What have you perfected, what have you not perfected? Who knows a move, whether it be a rear naked choke, arm bar?
Yes, I know the ankle lock.
Oh, little guy, so you know the ankle lock, huh? Well, do you know who perfected it?
Kurt Ankle.
No, it's not Kurt Angle. He ripped it off. Ken Shamrock made it famous, but I perfected it. Why don't you put it on me? Why don't you put it on me? See what you got. See what you got. Is that all you got? Is that it? What a wimp you are. Can you not twist any harder than that? Is that all you got? Harder. Get out here. Let me show you how this is done. Come here, kid. I could break this ankle in 2 if I had to. Come here. Get over here. Quit moving. Can you feel it? Well, tap if you can feel it. I don't think it hurts bad enough. I literally perfected this in weeks. This is an arm bar, little lady. Can you feel it?
Yeah.
Can you feel it?
Yeah.
I perfected this move in 2 days. Tap that mat. This is a leg bar, kid. Can you feel that pain?
Ow.
Huh? Happy Thanksgiving, kids. You got an awful lot to work on. An awful lot to work on.
Dude. It'll never not be funny. It's a 10 out of 10 for me.
Oh, I appreciate that, Captain. I didn't know you. I really did know you enjoyed it. But
I mean, Jeff Jarrett tapping out kids. Like
literally, this makes me feel old. Those kids are seniors in high school right now, and friends of the family, and they know me out as Dad Jeff, and now all of a sudden I'm walking in and there's ow, that hurts. Anyway,
how much of the inspiration for that was the 2006 movie The Foot Fist Way, starring Danny McBride? If you haven't seen that, you need to go out of your way to see it, because I bet Borash has seen it and loved it.
You know what? That's a question for JB.
I'll hit him up and ask.
Yeah, we need to pick his brain. I wonder if, because he was the shooter, the producer, the director. We chuckled on that.
Go out of your way to see it. We'll try to throw it up on our social, but my goodness, is it great. Let's talk about
look, I had a big match coming up. I had a big exhibition against Kurt Angle. I mean, come on.
Phenomenal stuff. James and Tara, the ladies cage match. They get 13 minutes and 1 second. Meltzer says solid match, really the only one on the show given any time. I recommend you go find it on the Impact Plus app or YouTube. Really, really good stuff. Meltzer would say James kicked her off and then climbed to the top and came off with the Thez press, which is a big deal. Meltzer would say that was a tough move because landing like that from that height has a high injury risk. Tara tried to catch her and break her fall, but James landed with her feet solid on the mat. And after the pin, got up limping. A Thez press off the top rope, big deal for anybody. But 11 years ago with the ladies, that's a big deal. Mickie James, she showed some things that day, did she not?
And, I think, it's one of those things as time goes on, I am certain Mickie will get the recognition. I'm just certain of it. But when Mickie, it's almost, and let me think how to say this without, she always over delivered. She came, if it's a big match or a main event or a big tag or a big single match, she always over delivered. Yeah. Always as a performer.
John Cena had a nickname a while back, Big Match John. Mickie James was that way too. Mickie James has been criminally underrated her entire career.
Yes.
And timing is everything. And when it comes to having success in life, I got to think had Mickie James came along, I don't want to say 10 years, but a handful of years later, man, she would have been front and center for this, women's revolution that we had, 6 or 7 years ago. But I think because she predated it, fans and certainly management had sort of seen her in a certain box. But man, ladies like Mickie James and Gail Kim, my gosh, they should be tearing it up right now with the Sashas and the Charlottes and the Beckys and all that, right?
Yeah, and even in our run in TNA, when Gail and Kong, when that whole thing developed and we got that nice rating of them in the main event, first time to my knowledge that women had ever main event a primetime cable show, throw Mickie into that storyline, some shape, form, or fashion, big. We had a group and branding, and I think that'll be an episode coming up this year. If not, maybe we can discuss it. But just the knockouts as a whole, it was the opposite, the alternative at that time to the Divas. But Mickie and Tara, look, this is not that she's a hell of a performer too. So they tore it down. It's a really good, and I don't even want to say ladies cage match. It's a very good cage match.
Unfortunately, though, America wasn't ready for it. And this is what I was saying when I said timing's everything. This main event had people tune out in droves. It's the least watched main event on any Impact show in several months. The show did a 1.1, which is 1.5 million viewers, which is way more than a lot of shows these days. So it's hard to categorize it as a failure, but I think putting it on last, a ladies main event, a cage match, the office thinking had to be, this will be a big draw for us. And it just didn't work. But I don't think it had anything to do with the ladies themselves. Very talented performers, a very good match. We can't say enough nice things about it, but it just feels like the masses, maybe they weren't ready for it yet.
Story. To me, it had nothing to do. It's, what makes the number one hit, the singer or the song. If you don't have both, you're not creating number one hits. You're not even really going to create a top 10. There was, to my knowledge and recollection, and again, this whole era, you had to literally in the middle of the complete rebrand, 6-sided to 4-sided. Nasty Boys, Orlando Jordan. I hate to beat that, but there was such an influx of new talent. These guys going out. It was a huge transition situation. And I'm not saying their story wasn't over. To my knowledge, there weren't a lot of stories that you go, oh man, that got over.
Let's talk about something you're doing here. Meltzer would write, Johnny Moss has not signed with TNA. He will be wrestling Jeff Jarrett in January when TNA goes to London. Jarrett is doing a deal where he will wrestle several different area independent wrestlers on shows to see firsthand what they know, with the idea of perhaps offering them contracts. When they perform in Glasgow on January 27th, Jarrett will face Adrian McCallum from Scotland. On that show, Scottish comedy actor Greg Hemphill will be working as a special guest referee. Jarrett also did an angle on the January 25th show in Berlin, where he did an angle with a well-known German musician. And the gimmick is the musician is going to find an opponent for him on the show. So you're having some fun to cross the pond. Are you handling your bookings for the independent scene, or does this all come through the TNA office, or what's that look like creatively? And is this all just your baby?
No. And so here's where all this, and man, this is the story behind the story. So TNA on our live events in the UK, 07, 06, 07, 08, 09, they got a little bit better every year. A little bit better, a little bit better. Me and Kurt, I think, to this, you know, as far as paid attendance, best show at Wembley in UK. Ticket sales with, I'll say, the Hogan regime of 2010, 2011, during this time, they were down. And again, I said at the top of the show, I'm in live events and I'm in international. And Andy Barton comes to me and, look, Dixie's concerned. Actually, Dallas is concerned because we were spending a whole lot more money than we were the prior year or the prior, whatever it may be. So how are we going to create revenue? Oh no, now we're not even going to hit our numbers with the UK. Okay, that's an issue. So we sort of put our heads together, or I did, and started thinking, okay, let's go create local interest, because the story is what it is. The show is what it is. So let's go basically do a publicity stunt in each market, in Glasgow and London, in Germany. And so, gosh, I can remember talking to Nick Aldis. There were several folks that I started picking their brain who in these markets. And this is the very first time that I ever met, God rest his soul, Lionheart, Adrian. And then Johnny Moss, who now is a NXT trainer. Anyway, so this was not a independent scene circuit type deal. This was all geared for me, not me. Yeah, well, me, because I'm like, hell, I'll wrestle these guys. But to create a publicity to sell tickets in each of these markets that we couldn't do outside of TNA. So I flew over. I was doing publicity on all the traditional outlets, the morning shows, the paper, everything, all that. But I was in Scotland. I went to a wrestling school, hit Adrian over the head with a guitar. We created this real sort of, we just created a scene that Adrian was there and he was teaching kids, he was going through a wrestling school. Double J, the bad heel, comes in and knocks him out with a guitar. And anyway, we created a storyline. Basically we shot angles in each of these markets. Same thing with Malsey, same thing in Germany, not exactly the same angle, but we created PR stunts, to sell tickets. And, to this day, that match with Adrian is one of my favorite. And, Greg Hemphill, most of our listeners aren't going to really connect, but an enormous comedy actor in Scotland. Still Game was the show, very well known. He was a special referee. So those kind of things that I look back on my career, I had so much fun doing this in that there was an opportunity to promote, to do an angle outside of Impact. And it worked. It sold tickets. You could see the uptick in ticket sales that we weren't having before this. And we got a ton of publicity in London, and not so much in Germany, a little bit different because of the language barrier, and I couldn't get as intricately involved and do all that. But I'm not even sure how the German situation panned out, but the UK, and I wrestled Malsey in London and Adrian in Glasgow, and it worked.
Let's jump into the talk of Orlando. It's all over the Observer. And again, this is the Hogan Bischoff era, but there's a lot of talk internally, according to the Observer, about moving the show out of Orlando, with the idea being maybe we've burnt the crowd out. They've seen so much that now they don't really react. We need to get the show back on the road, because the reactions you get at a house show is probably what you want more on your TV. But you're trying to serve two masters. What makes for better television, and how do we run a business? How can we be as cost effective? Where did you land on this in 2011 here?
I was called from Dallas a couple of times, off the record and on the record, like what were my thoughts. And it was a unique situation that I didn't want to get middled in, but I also said it wasn't a problem in 07, 08, and 09. Why is it a problem now? What is the difference? Is what I would try to get them to ask themselves. And well, Dixie is telling us that it's the same. And I'm like, I understand that there are challenges at times, but we can also go to Wichita or Lubbock or LA or Denver or Nashville or Tampa. And you know what? The people aren't really into it tonight. The exact same thing can happen. Now, maybe not as often, or maybe. But taking the show on the road was not a cure to engage the crowd, is my opinion, all throughout. And then I said at the very top, can we afford it? Can we afford it? Can we afford it? And so if you're taping in Orlando Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, yeah, maybe by Wednesday, it's a little bit, but then all of a sudden you get Jeremy Borash and you get your audience coordinator and you get them fired up and you engage them and you give them something extra. You do what you do. You promote to keep them engaged. I thought it was a lazy man's excuse to say, oh, let's blame it on the Orlando crowd. Well, wait a minute. The Orlando crowd is supposed to be entertained. Who's responsible for entertaining the crowd? Creative. Period.
Let's talk about some questionable creative. This is from the December 16th show. Meltzer's recapping it, and he's talking about the concussion angle that happened with Morgan and Anderson. The idea being that Anderson shows up and holds his head when he sees his name on the lineup sheet. We're sort of teasing that he has some concussion issues, and then they just straight up discuss it. And Morgan actually says both of them have made a commitment to Chris Nowinski that when pissant promoters like Bischoff try to put wrestlers in harm's way, we're supposed to tell them to fuck off. Don't get me wrong, I get the realism, and it certainly adds a layer to the storyline. But given what we know now about concussions and CTE, is this a little too close, do you think?
Again, I wasn't a part of creative, and I don't know. I remember all this. I don't remember the seed and the story behind the story and the why. And it's one of those things that I was taught, Lawler and my dad and others, Dutch probably at the top of that list as well. What's the upside? What's the upside of touching on CTE? And I'm not saying those specific words, but what's the upside on this concussion angle? Where are you going with it? Are you really going to put Bischoff in that position that he literally, you can be a no good, rotten son of a gun and not use CTE. But again, I'm not. So for me to sit up here and act like I'm getting on my high horse, I don't know where all this came from. I don't know if it was a Dixie Nowinski. I don't know the mindset. I don't know. And maybe I don't even know the payoff. But as you read it today, you can't help but say, do we need to go down that road? Maybe not.
Jay Lethal winds up winning the X title from Robbie E on that show. Glad to see him pop up in AEW. I know we recently talked about that, but let's mention this from the Observer. Eric Young debuted finding the old world title belt in the trash can. Young now thinks he's a world champion, and he had two Hooters girls with him who were there because they're plugging a Spike special where there will be bikinis in the snow. And Young then goes to the room next to him for his guru for guidance. Brian Kendrick is playing the guru, which Meltzer says is a no money gimmick if I've ever seen one. And then he says Orlando Jordan and Eric Young beat Generation Me. I want to repeat that. Eric Young and Orlando Jordan beat the Young Bucks in 2 minutes and 49 seconds. And Young came out with the Hooters girls. And then Jordan came out dressed like a Hooters waitress with the orange short shorts and a small t-shirt. Young does a promo saying he was entering the most dangerous match of all time, the Battle Royal. He then jumped in the ring and threw referee Brian Hebner over the top rope. I thought it was hilarious, but this crowd didn't care. He then threw both members of Generation Me, that's the Young Bucks, over the top, and then clotheslined Jordan over the top and celebrated like he won. But the audience didn't care. Generation Me started hitting on the Hooters girls during the match while they were trying to get phone numbers, during a match. Young nailed both with a tope. Jordan ended up beating Max with the Cobra Clutch. These are the Young Bucks who've won Tag Team of the Year as more times than I can count. And here they are wrestling Orlando Jordan dressed like a Hooters girl as they're hitting on Hooters girls and tapping out to the Cobra Clutch. And it takes 2 minutes and 49 seconds.
We're going to get to the Okada story here in a minute. if you want to dive off into this. I do remember the Spike situation and the Hooters integration, and it was it wasn't a request. It was a mandate. You have to get Hooters mentions and integration and basically product placement, if you will, involved in the story. I don't think Spike and Kevin K said, hey, beat Jin me, but yeah, there you have it. When you really want to talk about the transition, like you have to know that Vince Russo was a part of 2009. He's also a part of 2010 in this writing, 2011. So you can't rain it all on him.
It's not all great news. TNA ends 2010 with 2 bits of bad news. Their world champion is expected to plead guilty to drug charges, and their secondary television show was canceled. The Moore County District Attorney's Office on December 27th released information that Jeff Hardy would be pleading guilty on January 20th, the date of his next scheduled hearing. Also, several sources within TNA confirmed this past week that Spike TV informed the promotion 3 weeks ago that Reaction would be canceled at the end of its current 10-episode contract. The contract ends on December 30th, and the show has been removed from the schedule the week after that. From a technical standpoint, this is not being called by either side publicly a cancellation, only that no contract was offered by Spike for future episodes. Spike officials told TNA that the cost of production of the show made it not worthwhile to continue. While the show did good ratings for an 11-piece show on the station, it was recognized that the show, which was a brainchild of Bischoff and Hervey, was to an extent gimmicked in its rating by having the television main event of Impact bleed into the show, giving it an artificial first quarter boost. The cancellation is a financial hit for the promotion, which has already faced many money issues in 2010 because of its huge increase in talent contracts. So not the best news heading into 2011. You know, I don't know what we can or can't say about the Jeff Hardy legal situation. It kind of was what it was, I suppose. But the reaction to failure of I guess, what is your reaction to Reaction being deemed a failure? Because all we heard as fans was, oh, it's great. It's got good ratings. Fans like it, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, I know Borash was particularly proud of it, but for whatever reason, it gets scrapped. Were you surprised?
I'm well aware of the Spike deal. I never saw paper that said, hey, we're going to pay you for this. I was always under the impression that it was a trial run, and neither side could really quantify on what is this really going to cost TNA Entertainment to produce. We had to deliver it. So what is the real hard cost? Obviously the talent's there, but you had post-production. We're running lean and mean, so you're going to have, you know, folks that are going to take the content shot at the show and then turn it around and produce it. At the same time, they're turning around a 2-hour show to produce it. Again, a transition period. And, you know, I don't think at this time, Eric and Jason or BHE were officially named the executive producers. That's a whole nother podcast, a whole nother episode. But I was removed as executive producer in July, August, September, September of 2009. And I don't think a executive producer, a new one, was named until I think into 2011. Eric Bay. Anyway, I don't know exactly where the contract. So Eric and them were there, but they were, you know, Eric's official title coming in was, I'm going to be an advisor to Hulk, and then I'm going to be an on-screen talent. And it just sort of morphed into that. And I don't know where before, during, or after, but my impression from Dean Broadhead, the CFO, it was a trial period. What's it really going to cost? What's the upside going to be? Is it going to really increase revenue for us? Because a show like that, it's not a big licensing deal. It's because talent's there. It's all right. We got to post this. We got to edit up, turn it around, and flip it. So it wasn't going to be a massive amount of revenue as far as a license deal. Would it create buys and awareness and another? I don't, that's all debatable, but I wasn't surprised that Kevin K moved on from it. They were confused and they weren't happy.
Meltzer's also going to say that TNA was ahead of where they were this time last year in the sense that their house show numbers are up. He says they're still below 1,000 on average each month, but they're higher than last year. And he did say that they ran smaller markets so they could keep costs down. And Don West was there selling his ass off. So even if the show had poor attendance, he would make up for it because he's a wizard. That's what he does. But he did say costs are higher as well. Guys like Jeff Hardy, Rob Van Dam, Mr. Anderson, they're all making big money per appearance. Where were you thinking the company was at this point financially in 2011?
I knew I wasn't thinking. And, Dean, again, he was very appreciative of Don West and his strategy and the entire Craig Jenkins, the entire live event team. We were creating revenue. Not that Dave, it wasn't too far off, but I think in 2010, we averaged about 1,400 paid. And I think 2012 was about 13 anyway, but around that, small markets, but we made money on those shows. I can remember beating my head against the wall and Dean saying, we got to create more revenue. And I said, hey, Dean, I'm out here fighting the good fight. Don West is out here. We're creating revenue that didn't exist in 08 and 09 to this magnitude. We're doing everything we can. Can you do me a favor? And he says, okay. Why don't you get the people that are on Impact to actually come to live events? Conrad, I think I've told you this story. At one time, there was an Impact that aired on a Thursday, and 2 out of the 37 talent or 35 talent were going to be on the live events that weekend.
Wow.
That's insanity.
Yeah.
I mean, that's really insanity of, hey, we're going to put all these guys on TV, but no. Dixie's like, no, they don't need to go make live events. Okay. But you're bitching about live events not creating enough revenue. But you talk about a mess. It was a mess. So your question was the financial. I knew that we were headed for trouble because the talent that was being brought in were not being asked to work live events, and that doesn't work ever.
Let's talk about what else doesn't work. Hulk Hogan's career coming to an end, and nobody's really talking about it. Meltzer would say it's kind of amazing that the career of Hogan is almost surely over with no fanfare. Hogan's 10-hour lumbar fusion surgery is almost a sure thing to end his in-ring career, as there's no way he should ever take bumps on that back. The surgery is generally considered the last resort when it comes to alleviating lifelong intense pain. Any kind of falling after that surgery is likely to break a hip due to all the hardware in your body. Looking back at it, did you know at the time that's the end of Hogan's wrestling career?
There was all the kind of talk, and again, Hulk goes back with my family, late 70s, and everything that went with it. But I was always like, so he's going through serious back surgery, all kinds of issues, and we're still paying this guy a boatload of money? Like, what kind of sense does that make? But yeah, I mean, every indication that I heard or was aware of was the back surgery went a lot longer than expected, and he's probably done.
Well, let's talk about what you're doing here. I mean, here's the reality. He does wrestle 3 more times in his career.
Yeah.
Against Sting at Bound for Glory, 2 6-man tags in England in January 2012. And that's it. But it sure would have been cool if you would have known, I don't know what could have been, right?
Again, leadership starts at the top, and he was he was getting paid a lot of money as it relates to the bottom line of TNA. I mean, a lot of money, by far the highest paid per shot guy, including Kurt Angle, per guy, per shot. I mean, and the ROI, it was, it was painful for me to watch then, and it was actually painful for me to read through the notes, because look, injuries happen. It's unfortunate. He put a lot of wear and tear and he's the single biggest box office attraction as far as longevity. I think Taker's up there, but Hulkamania and the NWO run, I mean, my God, but you know, him coming into to TNA and that big contract, just from a business perspective, the ROI was damn near non-existent. And the proof is in this discussion we're having.
Yeah. So let's talk about what you're doing. Jarrett's going to beat Amazing Red in an MMA match. This is all from the Observer. Jarrett then, for the next week's show, wrestled Amazing Red's little brother under MMA rules. Apparently, this segment was great, as Jarrett thought it was a little brother and got on his knees. Then Tommy Mercer came out. He's had a few tryout matches, and they liked him. And facially, he resembles Red. Creative had been looking for an idea to do something with him to be Red's brother, and this was the idea. Red's brother dominated Jarrett, who got put in a few submissions, and Jarrett had to make the ropes. Frustrated, Jarrett tried to use the guitar, and Red ran in and stopped him, so there was no finish. Jarrett turned the heat up when it came to the mocking of Angle here. By the way, Tommy Mercer is the future Crimson, so clearly you knew this guy had something, and this is the first time we get to see him. But what a nice way to do it. He's Red's little brother, which Amazing Red is not necessarily the largest human. So when you hear little brother, heel Jeff gets all excited about that, right?
Oh, watching this back, it's fun. It's hats off. Me and Crimson, obviously through the years, have become, close, and I've worked very closely with him. His home base is about an hour from my house up in Clarksville, Tennessee. But he did such a good job. I mean, this is, to my knowledge, this is like his first TV, and it wasn't easy. But his premiere and debut and everything that went with it. But again, me getting to play that role of that just overbearing, but just way too confident. Oh, little Red's little brother. How about that? Just playing into all that, and the way Red's facials were and Crimson's facials were, and it just fit. It really fit. Good pop. Again, I'm going to go back and watch the crowd in these segments. The Orlando crowd wasn't a problem during these segments. Yeah, and it's the exact same time frame.
Let's talk about the other thing Meltzer wrote here. Jarrett did an interview and said, due to liability issues with all the TNA legal issues, he was told he can't be out there doing matches with fans. So he announced that the $100,000 challenge is for exhibition matches. And also that after what happened last week with Red's brother, he would only face people who were smaller than he was. There are those who believe the booking of this Jarrett MMA storyline is some of Russo's best work in a long time, basing it on the intense crowd heat during every segment. Don't get me wrong. I haven't heard it suggested that it will make a significant difference in business, as we're apparently past the point where good angles mean bigger numbers. Jarrett faced yet another plant from the 3D wrestling school. He used the ankle lock on the guy and refused to break until Angle ran in to make the save. Angle then said he was going to face Jarrett at the pay-per-view, and Jarrett went off on Angle for living up to his word and saying, "You're retired." Angle said that he shouldn't worry because it's only an exhibition match. Some nice realism, some good stuff, great heat, great segments. I hope people check this out. This is some of the most fun you had in this era, is it not?
Yes. And again, thinking through all this really highlights in a lot of ways this whole story. And I'm going to Dave's point that, look, is it going to drive a buy rate? No. But if we would have had this pay-per-view match and not been in that mindset of we got to do a monthly pay-per-view, and it would have been a quarterly pay-per-view, and this could have been a 10-pole event for a TV match, just like AEW is doing right now. They have, their specials, the Battle of the Belts or whatever it is. They do some 10-pole events, with TV specials. This whole storyline had a nice arc to it, a lot of heat, a lot of excitement. And Kurt, this promo, and that's where I'm going down with it, that Kurt's promo he is such a good actor when he turns it on, and his delivery of, oh, come on, man. It's just an exhibition, but he's like sticking it to me. Good reaction, good facials. It clicked. A lot of things in this storyline and program clicked between me and Kurt.
Let's also mention Kazarian winds up winning the X Division title shot to take on Lethal. The main program is going to be between Matt Morgan and Mr. Kennedy, with the winner getting a shot at Jeff Hardy at the next pay-per-view. Man, you're loaded with talent. Matt Morgan and Mr. Kennedy are getting the nod here. Is this more based on necessity, or are we really trying to make some new stars here?
No, I mean, the creative force, and, you know, again, it was the group. So I don't know who the actual vote was, but I was certainly high on Mr. Kennedy, but so were a lot of others. Morgan as well, big 6'10" dude, looked great.
Both of those guys are Hulk favorites, right?
Oh yeah, definitely. And then, you know, when you talk about, I mean, Kazarian, fantastic.
Yes.
And me, fantastic. We've already gone through some of the knockouts. Okada, who's a part of this whole time frame. I mean, we were loaded with talent, really, really good talent.
Let's talk about Okada, but before we do, I want to mention Rob Van Dam is in an 8-man tag on December 23rd, and he's talking about finally getting his hands on Jeff Hardy. Why do you think we never really got a sustained program with Rob Van Dam and Jeff Hardy in TNA?
I'd have to sort of line up the pay-per-view calendar and schedule, but, you know, Jeff had some rough times during this little era. I would have to say the timing of the simple answer is they're both baby faces.
Okay.
The timing, but they're both baby faces. Where's it going to fit?
The 8-man tag was Rob Van Dam and the Motor City Machine Guns teaming up with Matt Morgan to take on Jeff Hardy, Abyss, and Beer Money. So a lot of talent in here. We also see Doug Williams is the TV champion. He's feuding with AJ Styles and Fortune. TNA is well represented at the New Japan Tokyo Dome show. We've got Beer Money, Rob Van Dam, Okada, and Jeff Hardy. Here's what Meltzer wrote about Okada. By the way, this is the New Japan Tokyo Dome show that happens on January 4th every year. You guys know it as Wrestle Kingdom. Biggest shit going, right? Okay, here we go. Okada was billed as being from TNA since he's based in Florida. He works dark matches and explosion matches, and they don't deem him impact worthy because he's Japanese, as he's a good worker with more size than most of the Japanese wrestlers. He's considered to have a good fortune in New Japan, which is why he was sent to TNA, and they did nothing. Considering what Okada wound up becoming, I mean, probably one of the all-time greats. I mean, this guy's going to go down as, when people talk about, you know, the best wrestlers in the history of Japan, he's going to be in that conversation. Year after year, he's had outstanding matches, and really at this point, the entire New Japan promotion is built around him. He is their top star. But you guys had him, and he's working on Explosion and fucking YouTube. Is this maybe the biggest miss in TNA history?
It's certainly, and I am so glad I had no part of it. It is certainly right up there at the top of it. What's crazy, and here's where I got so frustrated, and I had these conversations with Dallas that I'm like, I can't touch this. This is a Dixie Carter on down. But you guys have the numbers. Hey, Janice, you have the numbers. Look at the money and the revenue that was created by the New Japan relationship when Kurt wrestled Yuji Nagata, when Team 3D went over there. I mean, year after year, deal after deal. It's not a, hey, maybe. It's not hypothetical. It's not rumor and innuendo. No, here's real money. And now we're in 2010, 2011. And they have transported someone. Look, am I saying that I knew Okada is going to be maybe? No, I didn't know that. But he's a young boy, and the relationship was great. And if they say he's good,
he's good. Yes.
Okay. Yeah. If they say he's good, and they're paying to relocate this young man halfway around the world, and he's living, and he's not a plane ticket for us. I'm not saying he's the main event of Impact, but give the guy some respect and surround him, put him in a tag team, do something with him. And Dixie and team acted like he was a damn nuisance. It's unbelievable the lack. I don't even want to say vision, just the lack. It was a awareness, a lack of awareness that, hey guys, let's do something, just something, because of the value of the relationship. And they had no interest in it. And they're all a part of it. They were all aware of it because multiple times it was discussed.
It's been said that, you know, a lot of that was based on Russo, but I mean, I know for sure Eric Bischoff understood the value of the New Japan relationship, or he wouldn't have done it so well with WCW.
Exactly.
It's hard for me to hang this on Eric. I'm not saying, you know, maybe he couldn't have done more, but is this just Russo? Is this Hogan? Did Dixie not see it? Again, nobody could have. I'm not saying that anybody would have said the Young Bucks are going to be one of the most decorated tag teams in history and Okada's going to win Wrestler of the Year a fucking dozen times. I'm not saying anybody knew that that was going to be the case, but it sure does feel like you had everything it took to be a monster promotion, but the stuff that worked in the 80s is what was on the main event, and the stuff that was from the future never made proper airtime.
Let me ask you something, Conrad. What do you think about the old phrase audience of one?
I'm very familiar with it, but I'm asking for you to phrase it that way, was the audience of one here Bob Carter, Dixie Carter, Hulk Hogan?
And I'm going the other way with it. Who were they writing TV for?
I think I
think Hulk was writing for Hulk. I think Dixie was writing for whoever she talked to last. I think Vince was writing, bro, we got to get ratings. And I'm not discounting any of it.
Right.
But I don't think there was ever, you know, and Eric was like story, structure, compelling, you know, everything. So I think the culture that was created, again, I'm not pointing fingers. There was no audience of one is what I'm saying is there wasn't a clear-cut vision. And I'm over here in Nashville doing international and live events. And that was my sort of my in to tell Dallas, hey guys, I'm in charge of creating revenue internationally. We built this New Japan relationship up and we are making money. And now you guys are decimating it just because you don't even want to pay attention to it. That's the real reality. There was no audience of one.
Let's talk ratings before we get to Genesis. Impact on December 30th had 1.4 million viewers. I just want to add context to this. That's December 30th, 2010. 1,400,000 viewers for Impact. Raw on December 27th, 2021, aka last month.
Oh, wow.
The last episode of Raw in 2021 had 1,592,000 viewers. So Raw in 2021 had 192,000 more viewers than Impact did 10 years ago. It's pretty crazy when you put it in that context.
Yeah, very interesting.
Matt Hardy is being brought up as a mystery opponent for Rob Van Dam. I guess everybody's sort of wondering, you know, what do we do in with all that's going on with Jeff Hardy? Bully Ray is introduced as the newest incarnation of Bubba Ray. This transformation is really going to be the highlight of Bully's singles career. Did you know right away he had what it took to be a top level heel as a singles?
I mean, it's certainly not rocket science. I mean, like I said, as the tag team, they're not bookends. They're not the exact same. And they both, if you want to say Devon would maybe play a secondary role, but not really. They're just two different unique individuals. But Bully's promo skills and work skills, single, tag, six man, he's got the goods, and he can be a hell of a baby face and a hell of a heel. He's very well-rounded, right up there at the top.
The Observer would also say, not sure what the status is of Desmond Wolfe. He was at the last tapings doing an angle scheduled for Impact, but then it never aired. He also mentioned a few weeks back on Impact in passing that Magnus saying he was going to try to play football but he got it out of his system and would be back soon. But then his name wasn't mentioned since. Nigel McGuinness, one of the best wrestlers in the world in Ring of Honor, a few years prior to this, looked like he was headed for WWE. It didn't work out for whatever reason. There's a whole documentary about that if you want to go check that out. But it does look like he's winding down here. And nobody really knows exactly what's going on with that. I believe that Bruce has his opinions. What do you think happened with Nigel McGuinness or Desmond Wolfe here in Impact and TNA?
In Impact or in TNA Impact?
Yeah.
I'll diplomatically, and we can move on. My best recollection is there was a medical issue that came up.
Yes. Now I remember that, but I think the idea was he was going to try to be commissioner of Explosion, and he was going to do some commentary stuff. And it was relayed through Bruce on Something to Wrestle years ago.
Yeah.
That he was trying to pursue acting, and that maybe was taking priority, and he needed to miss some tapings for acting. And as you know, the financial state of TNA, we're trying to cut whatever costs we can, that sort of deal.
They went their separate ways.
Yeah.
It's out. I'm done.
Let's talk about the show. Here we are. Genesis 2011. This show actually gets 51% thumbs up in the Observer. Match one is a hell of a way to start. If you could start every pay-per-view from forever and ever, amen, with Kazarian and Jay Lethal for the X title, I'm in. They get 11 minutes and 36 seconds. It's a 3.25 star match. Kazarian's going to get the win. He wins the X division. Both of these guys are now in AEW. Frankie Kazarian is a lot like Mickie James to me, in that he's been good the whole time. And every now and again, creative would do right by him. But I don't think I've seen a segment Kazarian was ever in and felt disappointed or cheated. Like, that dude brings it every time. I'm never disappointed. And you could say the same thing about Jay Lethal, right?
And, you know, I could remember in Orlando, Conrad, did you ever go to Orlando backstage? I'm sure you did.
No, not backstage. No.
Okay. But anyway, from catering to the offices, to the trailers, you know, you do a lot of movement. And there's so many times I could remember having guys wanting to come up and talk. And I'm not saying specifically Frankie, but I mean, just talent after talent who wanted to move up the card. And even when I was executive producer or head of creative, and then during this role, Live Events International, it crystallizes. And I often think of the situation right now in AEW. There are only a finite number of top spots. And then from top spots, you go to, you know, I'll say upper mid card, then mid card. And then, I mean, it is what it is. But Frankie, Jay Lethal, oh my gosh, we could go Motor City Machine Guns. Sanjay Dutt. We talked Mickie, Tara. I mean, there was much really, really good talent. We had so much talent. My point is, we had so much talent in there. There weren't enough spots to go around. And Frankie was a victim of that in TNA many times. And it's nothing he did wrong.
Yeah. Next up, Madison Rayne is going to pin Mickie James in 10.5 minutes to keep the Knockouts title. Meltzer would say they tried, but the longer they went, the more it fell apart. They were out there way too long for someone of Rayne's ability on pay-per-view. James spanked her at one point. They did a Thez press off the top, but didn't get the pin. James then set up a DDT, but Tara came out, and while James was distracted, Rayne loaded her glove and hit James and got the pin. So Madison Rayne keeps the Knockouts title. Once again, Mickie James, the bridesmaid. Boy, Mickie James is a pro, but this probably was a little too long of a match for Madison at this point, don't you think?
Oh, definitely. And, you know, in Madison, from where she was at 2010, 2011 to where she was in the last couple, I'll say, you know, as she progressed in her career,
way better.
Oh, way. And that's hats off, because, you know, it's not like she got to get out and work 15 house shows a month or live events a month. But she steadily improved. At this point, to hang with Mickie James, probably, you know, and that's the conversation that I often would have with Vince through the years. It may look great on paper, but the execution of a pay-per-view match that goes 8-10 minutes. Vince, it's not there. Oh, bro, we'll make it work. No, you won't, Vince. It was what it was.
Beer Money is going to beat Motor City Machine Guns in 17 minutes and 57 seconds to win the TNA tag titles. Meltzer called it the best match on the show, but still not even close to their level of their TV match in August that everyone's still talking about. More of a traditional tag match, 3 3/4 stars. Rude gets a schoolboy with the trunks on Shelley for the pin. You know, you talk about Alex Shelley, Chris Sabin, and Beer Money, James Storm and Bobby Roode, 4 badass performers, collectively 2 incredible tag teams. I think you could argue in this era, they got to be in the top 5 tag teams in the whole space, right?
I thought Beer Money was, during this era, maybe the top tag team in the business. And I say that because their merch in our world was by far the hottest seller. You know, it was always them and Hardy, but I mean, they, you know, that one shirt was number one for quite a while, but they took off, and they could work. Their in-ring work was great. Their promos great. The presentation was great. It was cool, hip. Look, Motor City Machine Guns, you know, maybe not the best promo skills. They didn't need to. They had the dynamic of, I call it, maybe the best ever X Division tag team. That I think, you know, and look, I know Jin Me didn't get the opportunity, but I'm talking about this era. Those guys didn't get the opportunity, but Motor City Machine Guns, they could go. And these were, God, they were clinics, man. I don't live events, Beer Money, a hell of a pop and entrance and all that. Good stuff, man. They made all the live events. I'll say that.
Next up, Bully Ray and Brother Devon. Bully Ray is going to get the win in 8 minutes and 50 seconds by DQ.
Tore the house down.
A super heated brawl, pretty much exactly what the first match of a program should have been. They're using a chain. They got lots of punches and whipping with the chain, and eventually Devon gets DQ'd for the chain. Devon shoves the referee and pounds on him. Bubba gets a cheap shot in, and then they do the pull apart. And finally, Bubba hits a low blow as the agents and referees are holding Devon back, and then he runs off. 3.5 stars. This story just sells itself because you know the story of the Dudley brothers, and now that they're together in a singles match. And by the way, let's just recap what we're doing so far. Kazarian and Jay Lethal, 3.25 stars. Madison Rain and Mickie James, who we all love, 1 star. Incredible tag match with Beer Money and Motor City Machine Guns, 3 3/4 stars. And now Bully Ray and Devon, 3.5 stars. These are great characters. They're great stories. They're great matches. This is pretty big time for a pay-per-view here, dude.
Well said. I mean, it's again, overabundance of talent.
I'm just saying there's a whole lot of folks who I think, and I get it, you know, they just dismiss TNA because of one bad idea here or there. But this is a hell of a pay-per-view with a lot of talent. But the economics of this still just baffle me. Like, there's 1,100 fans here, but it's in Orlando. So the gate is $0. And we've got all these stars. I mean, really good matches. Only 20,000 buys on pay-per-view. Like, in the context of who this is and what it is, not enough people have seen this. Next up, AJ Styles. He is not going to be here. He's supposed to be here challenging Doug Williams for the TV title, but he can't wrestle. He tore a hip flexor and his labrum while playing with his kids. Meltzer would say, even though Williams versus Styles stole the show at Final Resolution, TNA didn't let its audience know the built-up rematch wasn't happening, even though the company knew in advance. Instead, the only acknowledgement was after the show started. So what did they do? Out goes AJ, in comes Abyss, and believe it or not, Abyss wins. Now the fans are chanting, "We want AJ." Eventually, Doug makes a comeback with a back suplex and a knee drop for a near fall. That knee drop's off the top rope, by the way. Abyss's hand here winds up bloody. He goes to get the barbed wire board. Andrew Thomas, our referee, is going to stop Abyss from bringing it into the ring. Styles is going to badly limp into the ring and hit Williams with a belt shot. Abyss then nails the black hole slam for the pin, star and a quarter. So, listen, we've got to deliver AJ however we can. So if he can't wrestle, let's at least put him in the story. So he's cost Doug the story. I guess it's better than nothing. And I know you're not exactly running everything here. There's other management issues, shall we say, but when one of your top guys like AJ is in a title match and he gets hurt playing with his kids, it's not like he intended to get hurt. He didn't do it intentionally, obviously. Are you frustrated, pissed off? What would we call it?
AJ's kids beat him up. That's the bottom line of it. But no, I just sitting here thinking about, I'd love to, Derek, maybe next time, but what was the Royal Rumble of this month, 2011? Because we made the fans decide, and you're talking about it's good content. It's compelling, 1.4, 1.5 million fans watching week in, week out. And to sit back and, again, here we are 10 years later, for sure, hindsight's 2020, but the business model. And now it's funny. I heard that, the announcers the other night, WWE, talking about their day one as premium content. We had premium content back then. That's what our pay-per-views were called, international. We're going to send the premium content out. Impact was the 2-hour show, and once a month they got a 3-hour pay-per-view named premium content. But yeah, so AJ being forced in this, and again, it goes back to, I'm not pointing fingers, but the mindset was a monthly pay-per-view. We advertised AJ, or he's been a part of the storyline leading up to it. We got to deliver AJ. When in reality, no, we didn't. But maybe I would have concurred at the time. I don't remember my thoughts, but there was so much frustration for me personally going on during this time because of the revenue situation. Or let me say this, because of the expenses getting out of control situation.
Royal Rumble that year, in a word, sucked. It was a 40-man Royal Rumble. Ultimately, Alberto Del Rio is going to win. There's a fatal 4-way with Eve Torres, Layla, Michelle McCool, and Natalia. There's a WWE Championship match with The Miz beating Randy Orton. There's a World Heavyweight match with Edge beating Dolph Ziggler.
Wonder what
the pre-show, it was R-Truth versus Kurt Hawkins.
What about the bias? Does it say the bias? Anyway, I just say that we made, like we did every month, the audience had to vote. Who are we going to buy a pay-per-view? Some folks bought 2, but a lot of folks says, all right, this is my pay-per-view Sunday. I'm watching the Rumble.
The buy rate was 476,000 buys.
And I'm sure on this Sunday, we are going up against football, during this time. We probably going up against. So anyway, yeah, good content, didn't deliver on the revenue.
So they also debut Matt Hardy as the secret opponent for Rob Van Dam. This is from Meltzer's report. Unfortunately, that didn't go well on a lot of levels. While they would have almost certainly increased business a little had they advertised Matt's debut, that's their own issue. Plus, he looked anything but like the WWE version of Matt Hardy. He didn't appear in shape or have much of a spring in his step. That's directly from Meltzer. They go 11 minutes and 49 seconds. Hardy gets the win. And Meltzer would say, even though it was Hardy's debut match, the match wasn't much, and the crowd lost interest at the 5-minute mark and never came back. By the way, the referee here is Jackson James, aka Eric Bischoff's kid. They do a deal where Hardy uses a twist of fate, and Van Dam's leg is so far under the rope that it's hanging off the apron, but the referee counts 3 anyway. So Meltzer says it looks like they're building to acknowledge that James is Bischoff's son, or at least trying to make him a heel referee. But this is really the start of Garrett Bischoff becoming a character. It seems oddly placed when it's a big debut and a big win over Rob Van Dam. Any comments about Matt coming in to save the day, or Meltzer's comments? And then we'll talk about what you thought of Garrett Bischoff coming in.
So I can remember getting the heads up. I was elated when I heard Matt was coming in. The very top of the list. I thought it'd be good for Jeff. The monetization of the Hardys on live events that I thought was going to happen, that never did, so to speak, on a full-time basis. But look, I've gone through a rough patch in my life, and Matt, I had no idea, but he was in the throes of a very rough patch in his life, and it just didn't work out. It wasn't probably an era of his career he likes to remember. And it just didn't work. It didn't click. but man, again, the talent stacked on stop it. I mean, we were packed with talent. It just amazing in a lot of ways. But yeah, I don't remember this finish specifically. I do remember when I found out Jarrett was going to be in this role. I remember having a quick, brief conversation with Eric and say, hey, Eric, I don't know Jarrett that well. I've seen him around, all this, but my point being is I am well aware of being a promoter's kid or being the boss's kid. I debuted as a referee. It is not, I don't care it's not an easy role. If you're just going to be a traditional ref that stays out of the way and counts 1, 2, 3 is one thing. But if you're going to be thrust into a storyline, I'm here to help. It's not easy. And me and Jarrett have always, from day one, we hit it off and we're friends.
Next up, it's time to talk about your match with Kurt Angle. Kurt Angle beats Jeff Jarrett by DQ in 40 seconds of the third round of what was called an MMA exhibition. Angle and Jarrett, instead of having a great match as they have the ability to, did a weird grappling exhibition match that made no sense with the way they worked it, although they did get super heat doing it.
Oh boy.
It was something that would have made a great television angle, but when you're buying a pay-per-view to see Angle, you expect an Angle match. A 3 2-minute round grappling exhibition can feel like a ripoff, especially when it comes with not getting styles as advertised. During the show, Jarrett announced it was 3 2-minute rounds and that no striking was allowed because he didn't want Angle to get hurt. But his $100,000 was still at stake. Of course, the way they worked the match, that made no sense. The first round was a complete stall, trying to remake a Antonio Mickie and Jacob Volkman fight. I'm sure you watched that for research.
Oh, what?
Jarrett wouldn't get near Angle, who dared him to lock up. Then Kurt dropped him to his back and laid down and tried to get Jarrett to jump on him, but Jarrett wouldn't do it. As bad as this sounds, and it was, the crowd was hotter for this than anything else on the show except Bubba and Devon. The story of the second round was Angle humiliated Jarrett by getting him into one submission after another and then breaking and putting on a new one. This is totally illogical with the money at stake. He used a Kimura, an arm triangle, an arm bar, then an ankle lock, and then the round ended. The third angle saw Jarrett spit in Angle's face. Jarrett then rubbed something in Angle's eyes and the bell rang. It rang early as this wasn't supposed to be the finish, and they kept going, pretending there was no bell. Angle then bladed himself right as the camera had the perfect angle to see it. Jarrett started punching the cut, violating his self-imposed rules. The bell rang again for Jarrett punching. Angle was bleeding bad, and the heat was good, 1.5 stars. So Meltzer clearly didn't like it besides the heat. But I am curious what you thought of the match and then this, I guess, rumor or speculation that the bell rang at the wrong time.
Poor Dave. And I get it. He has to report on what he sees and what he think is supposed to happen. Bell ringing all, look, I'm not going to, I didn't go back and watch this, but it all clicked that night. It was in between the second and the third round. The storyline was, I knew that I was in trouble storyline wise. In real life, I could handle myself, Conrad. You know that. But storyline wise, no, it was between the second and third round. They gave me water because I had my gloves taped up, put water in my mouth, go over and spit in his eyes, and then it's on. I can remember being very upset later in the night when I was told, hey, you may want to go look at that. They got the wrong shot. They got the wrong shot of what? Kurt. What about Kurt? Just go watch it yourself. And sure enough, I was not a happy camper. I'm like, son of a...
Who do you hoot and holler at on that deal?
Probably went to Keith first, but it's all a director. It's literally director. You have to look in the preview because when you're got your 7, 8, 9 cameras or whatever, you have what's going out on the air, and then the screen right next to it says preview. And you don't punch preview, and sometimes the technical director, they're the ones that actually take and push the button. So they took the wrong shot by not previewing it. And I know it's live TV and anything could happen, but knowing in between rounds is when it's going down, stay wide, don't get in close, certainly stay away from Kurt's right hand. He's right-handed, those kind of things. It is what it is. But the heat and look, I get, because Dave's world revolves around matches, 5-star and 4-star and 3-star. I get that. And I get it. I totally understand. But if we're going to have a pay-per-view, which again, I've gotten into the business model, the people in the arena wanted to see Kurt kick my ass in Mike Tyson in 9 seconds, not 90 seconds. They were up for it. They came, the people there live were like, we're going to see something. Who cares about a 20-minute 5-star Kurt Angle match? This storyline clicked. They wanted to see live. It was really I enjoyed it. It was, I thought, a really good payoff to the whole storyline. Kurt was phenomenal in promos all throughout this. He played it perfectly, like John Wayne, like Cool Hand Luke, like, all right, Jeff, as a wrestler, we can go toe to toe. I'm still the Olympic gold medalist. But if we're going to get all into this MMA world, I'm going to kick your ass in 10 seconds. So if we're going down that road, let's do it. He played it so, I thought, the opposite. I think the yin and the yang of us, we always work well together in the ring, but the yin and the yang of me over the top being super confident and Kurt being super confident as a babyface that I'm going to kill this guy. It just worked. It clicked.
So next up, our main event, Mr. Anderson is going to pin Matt Morgan in 15 minutes and 29 seconds in a battle to see who is the number one contender. By this point, they've largely dropped the concussion angle, including a spot where Morgan would post Mr. Anderson, which wouldn't have happened if they weren't doing that. Anderson hit a couple of mic checks, but slow to cover. I guess he's teasing he's not 100%. But the finish would see the two collide heads, and then Anderson used an inside cradle for the pin, 2.5 stars. And then something different happened. Bischoff announced that Anderson would get his title shot at Jeff Hardy right now. I think a lot of people assumed, hey, if Jeff Hardy's here, they're going to advertise it, but they did not. So what do you know? Jeff Hardy is here, and they're going to have him be involved in a match here to defend his world title. Meltzer would say they had a match which under normal circumstances would have been considered an overbooked mess, given that there was interference or distraction from 7 different people at different times. All of these folks are involved in this same match now with Anderson and Hardy. Matt Morgan, Mick Foley, Ric Flair, Matt Hardy, Rob Van Dam, and Eric Bischoff. But Meltzer says it wasn't like anything but the constant run-ins and Anderson kicking out of all of Hardy's moves was going to get the crowd into the match, so it was for the best. The idea is that Anderson is hurting badly, with the mentality that they were just doing the WWE Money in the Bank cash in on the babyface who just went through a tough match and was injured. So Jeff Hardy came out in clothes, smoking a cigarette. Seeing this, my reaction was, if he cares so little about the title, then why should I? But I'm 10 years behind the times because nobody has cared about this title in forever. Anderson kicked out of the twist of fate right away, and people didn't even care. No pop for a spot you'd think was easy, but to their credit, with all the near falls and run-ins, people were into it down the line. Hardy came back and hit the swanton, but Anderson kicked out. Anderson's bleeding at this point, and he does the Lambo plunge, but after delivering it, starts selling like he's exhausted. Hardy used a running clothesline and called for Matt to run down, who did, and Meltzer said it wasn't pretty. Van Dam then attacked Matt, and they brawled in the aisle. Bischoff grabbed a chair, but before he could use it, Anderson gave Bischoff the mic check and rolled him out of the ring. Jeff Hardy went for the twist of fate, but Anderson blocked it and hit the mic check for the pin. As noted, normally this kind of booking burns out the crowd, but I guess because the match was a bonus, it actually saw the crowd get pretty hot at the end for a match they didn't care about at first. 3.5 stars. So Mr. Anderson debuted at Genesis 2010. Here we are 1 year later, and he's winning the big belt. At this point, was Ken ready to be the man, or is he just a Band-Aid of sorts, considering all that Jeff has going on in real life?
Well, and I wasn't, again, in the room, so I'm well aware that in the room, there's so many factors that go on. Jeff's legal situation, Ken, who knows, maybe contractual. Where are we going to go? We brought Matt in, or Jeff and Matt going to be monetized more and used as a tag team. Bunch of different factors obviously go into it. I was always a fan of Ken. I thought that his promos were good. He was fresh at the time. Now, for me to teleport back into that era, just so many different moving parts. But you know, the transition as it was, it's so difficult. You just said 7 different folks in that one finish, including Foley and Flair. It's really hard to do anything when you have those kind of mega legends. Yes, yeah. But it's just hard. If you're going to crown, especially a new babyface champion, it's just difficult if you're going to involve people of the stature of Foley and Flair.
Let's keep it going and ask your opinion of the show overall. I mean, the main event kind of is what it is, but there's so much memorable stuff on here. So many great talents. Thumbs up, thumbs down, thumbs in the middle.
I mean, I got to go to me. Well, I don't have to. I feel, and during this era, I do think it's the transition, but it wasn't quite TNA LOL. There was a lot of good content being created. The outside world didn't know that the company was at the beginning of the financial death spiral. They didn't know all the, massive checks and balances that were going unseen. They didn't really realize, just at this live event in whatever it is, Fort Wayne, Indiana, nobody that was on Impact last night is here tonight. The real micro situations going on in the big picture, people weren't aware. So I thought it's a good show on the surface. And even when you get down on a match by match basis, but as you uncovered and research uncovered, and I enjoy discussing all kind of things like that. When you take in the Okada situation coupled with the overall relationship with New Japan, when you take in new upcoming talent like Jin Mi, out there hitting on Hooter girls because it's a Hooters integration. Seriously, I mean, when you take whatever it may be, and we went through it sort of segment by segment, match by match. It's to me,
let my family save your family some cash. You don't need perfect credit. You don't need money out of your pocket, but we will save you money. It's not a matter if, it's a matter of how much. SaveWithConrad.com.
It's fun to go back and take a stroll down memory lane, but to me, it's a thumbs up, but there's so many sidebars, Conrad. We could have made this podcast 3-4 hours, but we didn't. And I appreciate that because we stayed on point today in a lot of ways. It was a good show, but man, a lot of head scratchers and what ifs.
A lot of what ifs. And one of the biggest ones, literally, is Matt Morgan. Ad Free Show's top guy, Antonio, says, why do you think Matt Morgan was never world champion? It always seemed like his creative was stop and start. Was there something holding him back?
It's a good question. Timing's everything. When Matt came on the scene, I know he was in that title discussion multiple times. Why it was never, the trigger was never pulled, I don't know. Timing would be the short answer to me.
Next week, Jeff, we're going to pick up where we left off, talking all things USWA, the way it all came together when your dad bought into the Von Erich territory of world class. You find yourself making some bus trips back and forth, and you're going to get to stretch your legs in the professional wrestling business a little bit, right?
Conrad, I had lunch today with my father.
Oh, really?
And I'll get to share it next week. This is all perfect timing. You sprung the topic on me. He had some conversations with Fritz that I'll have to clean up a little bit to make it PG, but it's fascinating. I think you will look. I'm looking forward to sharing it with you because it all goes into the entire birth of USWA, and at the same time, it was the slow, painful but strategic death of WCCW and from a legal perspective and why it had to be done. So one promotion died, another was sort of launched and born. And Lord knows we got plenty of research to go on, Conrad.
Man, I'm fired up. Looking forward to it. Hope you guys are too. Hope you make plans to join us on pay-per-view #PickleFight this weekend. for GCW. Finally, we're going to get to hear what Jeff Jarrett was thinking when he attacked the beloved Effie. I don't get it. And I want to know what's going on with what?
Just shut up.
I mean, dude, you're not a fan of Bussy?
Do you know what that stands for, Conrad?
I do. Do you?
It's Boosie.
Yeah, but I'm from the South.
Oh, Colorado.
I'm sick to say.
Colorado.
How's Teeter say it? Old Teeter from Colorado calls it Bussy. What are we doing with our lives?
What are we doing? I told you it's late in the evening and I don't have lights on in the office. I'm going.
Hey, listen, you know what? The sun is down. That's how late we're doing this, but we're doing it because I got some travel and I appreciate you cleared your schedule for us to make this happen. And I knew there was no damn way in hell you were letting me slide John Alba or Paul Bromwell or somebody like that in here.
Listen, Jackoff Alba's a nice guy, but he's just not up for my world standards. And Paulie B, Marble Mouth Paulie B. No, I'm kidding. I'm literally kidding. I enjoyed this today, though. It did.
You know what would be fun though? You and Elephant Door Silva doing a show together one day.
You think we could like order?
Let me tell you this: we were planning
with a cheeseburger.
What we need is to get him one of those whole jalapenos and watch him eat it. That's what we need.
Oh, I love it. That is a classic story.
Let me give you a classic one from today. We're working in the office, planning, ad-free shows for 2022 and getting some calendars out and some special events planned and things like that. And I'm throwing out, so-and-so beat such and such at SummerSlam. Maybe we could do a special event around that or something like that. And Evan, stupid ass Evan, says,
"Oh, come on now.
Is that in March?"
Oh no.
And I looked at him and I said, "Do you think SummerSlam's in March?" And then a little later, we started talking about Title Chase and what belt to cover when and all that. And we're kicking around big gold. Like, when should we do that? And I said, well, this is the 25-year anniversary of Sting beating Hogan at Starrcade. And he said, was that in April?
Oh no.
You thought Starrcade? And so I looked at Silva and I said, this is what happens when you lie on your resume, right? I mean, right now would be an excellent time to make a plug for ZipRecruiter. Maybe next week. Boys and girls, we've had a lot of fun talking about MMA exhibitionists. Go out of your way to find that video of Jeff tapping out children. I know you've seen him hit old ladies with guitars and put them in figure four, but dude, tapping out kids, put it in my veins, daddy. I love it. Check it out. It's going to be on our Twitter and everywhere else, but you can throw it in your Google machine. YouTube has it under the Impact channel. Just tremendous stuff. Just look up Jeff Jarrett Complete Video Dojo and you'll see it. And until next week, man, make plans to join us in St. Louis. We're going to have a heck of a time. And the rumor and innuendo is we've got a very special surprise or two at our show. It's Jeff and EricLive.com or EricandJeffLive.com. VIP is the place to be. It's the best value around. And so is adfreeshows.com. You are going to flip when you see all that we're bringing. We just debuted last week the video for Jake the Snake and DDP and their new podcast, DDP Snake Pit. And there's more where that came from. I got a few tricks up my sleeve. I spent all day scheduling some pretty cool stuff today. So stay tuned to Ad Free Shows. You get all of our shows early and ad free, never a commercial. You're going to get tons of social interaction too. Yes, you get access to our Discord. Yes, you get all kinds of bonus content you can't get anywhere else, including JR's whole radio show, a conversation series with Jeff's dad, and so much more. But the interactive Zoom event, that's unlike a meet and greet, Jeff. You really get to have a conversation with some of our super supporters over at adfreeshows.com.
I've done several, and it is a value. I've come down from my steps off the bonus room and office, and Karen has been there, and she's like, I had to go. And I'm like, as a fan, I don't really think, because they don't have to leave their house. Obviously I don't have to leave my house. And then they get to ask questions and conversations, and they get to hear 20 or 30 or 40 other questions asked. I mean, I've said it every time you've asked me about it. It is the absolute best value in sports entertainment today. It is.
Go hit it up. You're going to be glad you did. It's adfreeshows.com. It's Conrad, and we are out of time. We'll see you next week right here on my world.
Slappy New Year. I can say that one more time.
That's the last time, damn it.
Hey, it's Conrad Thompson. Thanks for checking out the podcast here on YouTube. Be sure to hit the subscribe button and the notifications bell so you get a notice anytime we upload some new content. And go save yourself some money right now. If you're in a 30-year loan or you have credit card debt, it's not a matter of if I can save you money. It's a matter of how much. Find out right now for free at savewithconrad.com.